Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm William Chen.
And I'm Sarah Watt.
And this is one of our mini-sodes.
Hey.
We've done a few of these over the years, but the last wee while we've only had it available on Patreon. I think I might release some of those for people to listen to, because there's some great stuff in there. But we thought we'd do this one as kind of another gift to you. I think I see something similar at the end of 2023. And I think people really enjoy these chats where we get to talk about a range of films. In the past, we've done the films we've watched abroad. We've done sort of 7 films to watch over the summer. We've done Oscar chats, which, hey, we might even do another one of those in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But this time it's the films that we watched over the holiday period. So for those of you listeners that are overseas, it's very much summer here in the Southern Hemisphere. I just spent a week in Sydney, Australia. Sydney?
Yes.
It was 33 degrees in one of the days. 33 degrees Celsius. And for William and Sarah, you kind of had a mixture of,
I had
northern.
winter. Yeah, that's
And did
right.
you have both?
I had both,
Yeah.
Australia and Asia.
Yeah, nice. So we thought we'd talk about some of the films we might have seen on the plane, might have seen at international cinemas, might have even seen at things like, I don't know, Cannes, is that a thing you mentioned last month?
No, I didn't.
Is that some sort of film festival in the south of
Yeah,
France?
apparently. It's burgeoning.
Yeah.
And also, can I just say, this sort of episode is neat, Jeremy, because the films are still out at the moment. And so hopefully, because we're not going to spoiler any of these, this will act as I was thinking about seeing that, maybe I'll go kind of thing for listeners. A little bit like our Best of the Year that we released a couple months back.
And it works well because we've had time to watch a lot more stuff. And it's just, that's the time where lots of great stuff is coming out.
That's
over
right.
that summer period.
Well, we're in the lead up. Well, we've just had the Globes. We're in the lead up to the BAFTAs and the Oscars. So yeah, this is the good time of year.
Nice. Cool. William, start us off. Give us a film that you watched over the last few,
All
2
right.
months.
So I watched a whole bunch of stuff. I, again, was back in Taiwan to see my family. Went over to China for a bit. Was in Australia for a bit. So all sorts of opportunities to watch decent stuff. On the plane, I watched a lot of Bluey.
The Australian
kids show about a family of dogs. What a show, guys. It's so good.
Our little Billy is a puppy or a dog that lives in our house, and she's been around us today. We're recording at my place, and she loves Bluey. And apparently blue is one of the colours that dogs can actually see.
Whoa, very nice.
The funny connection for me, we spent a month in America with my husband's family, and our tiny little 2-year-old niece watches Bluey all the time.
Beautiful.
So she understands some of our Antipodean language, like going to the loo and putting things in the bin and stuff like that.
That's so good.
We could absolutely do a Bluey and Blue's Clues episode, couldn't we?
Yeah. So there we go.
Hopefully she ends up being a big fan of cricket.
Maybe.
No, I watch Bluey because I don't get the works on Air New Zealand. You can only watch TV shows and not movies.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, in terms of movies, watched a couple. I'll start off by just mentioning Wonka, which is something I was going into with trepidation because I love Paul King. I think that man is a genius. He did, of course, the Paddington movies on TV. He also did stuff like The Mighty Boosh. And if you guys have ever seen Dark Place, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is
back in the day.
a work of comedic genius. Again,
Don't rush away from Wonka because that was going to be one of the films that I wanted to talk about. So why not?
all right, let's do it. Unfortunately, I wasn't a big fan of Wonka.
Oh, okay.
I think all the pieces were in place. Like I've said on this podcast before, I used to hate Peter Rabbit, and now I love it.
Oh, same.
And so it's like Brit Kid Lit, brought to life by someone who's a very masterful visual director, and a lot of these just didn't work for me. I found the film overly stylized and the color palette to be really ugly, a lot of pinks and golds. The songs were just I really didn't like all the nostalgia tugging by the end of the movie, reminding you of better movies. To me, that just didn't work and felt really, really much like this is like, oh, what IP do we have? Let's remind them of the IP. Very cynical. Maybe that's just my mindset going in.
Sure.
It's like, don't like this. Hugh Grant was great. Charlemagne was okay. I found his singing voice to be so. It does have Natasha Rothwell, which is one of my favorite working actresses. She's Belinda from White Lotus. She's also hilarious in Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Every time she shows, it's like, yes. and Olivia Colman's in it, and a bunch of people doing funny accents, but it did not cohere for me at all. It was a bunch of disparate pieces, and it's a shame because I think Paul King can do it. He has a great track record. It just didn't work very well for me as well.
Well, I'll talk about a film that I saw called Wonka, and boy, was it different to Euroversion. So maybe context counts to some extent. I mean, it was Christmas time. It was snowy. We went to the wonderful Alamo Drafthouse in Denver, and the Alamo Drafthouse cinemas, Jeremy, because I don't know if you've been to any of them, but they're a chain across America where they serve you food and drinks while you watch the show, and they have a full menu of all manner of things, and somehow it's different from Gold Class. It just feels different and better. Anyhow, we took the little nieces and nephews and all those people, and I was really into it. I have no, what's the word, loyalty to Gene Wilder or any of that early Wonka. Couldn't care less.
No, the books?
Well, no, of course I love all the books, but I don't care about or have any recollection of the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Wonka, movie. So I don't care. So I was coming at this sort of fresh. Love Timothée Chalamet. I didn't mind that his voice isn't like High School Musical or those kind of films, because he is a jolly good actor who, again, we said this of Bradley Cooper last month. I love the fact that Timothée Chalamet speaks French and is a linguist and is musical enough, and I didn't mind. I thought his character was totally lovely enough. I thought Olivia Colman playing the old master of the house, 1999 kind of character,
she totally was,
from Les Mis. It's the sort of character that I would always want to play. She's like the evil one, and it's funny. And I thought the whole film was absolutely delightful. And then I actually came back to New Zealand and took the other nephew. And I took my sister, who's very hard to please. And she really enjoyed it as well. So I don't know, but for some reason it just all worked. And it's got all the cliches, it's got Jim Carter for starters. And, it is your classic sort of bad people. Well, it is, isn't it? It's your Paddington, your Peter Rabbit and all that. Interestingly, people were saying about Hugh Grant, he should be nominated for this and that. And didn't he get nominated for a Golden Globe?
For Wonka?
Was it?
Oh my goodness.
I don't know.
No, I think it was for something else.
I hope so, because I was like, what? It's not a part.
No. It's his face stuck on a little computer man.
Is it Cats? Cats 2023?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's not in that.
No, I mean in terms of his face stuck on a computer.
He's not bad in it. It's just...
But it's not a role or anything. It's just a gimmick. So that's fine. Oh, no, that's all right. That was my mistake. So thank goodness for that.
Can I say that I haven't seen Wonka because I just don't enjoy prequels of that nature. I just think seeing a character become... that's why I didn't watch the new Hunger Games film.
I love prequels.
I like a prequel that doesn't just tell you the story that you already know. I don't want to see Darth Vader become Darth Vader. I don't want to see...
I do.
No, because it's part... That for me is embedded in the original story.
I need it spelled out to me, Jeremy. Because, and if anything, somebody I know who cares more than I do said, but the only thing with Wonka is... Oh, I suppose that counts as a spoiler. But in terms of an origin story, it doesn't exactly fill in all the gaps.
Oh, yeah. And Chalamet is he's a very different character from Gene Wilder.
Sure.
And he's supposed to be the same guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but he's not. He's meant to be Willy Wonka. He's not meant to be Gene Wilder.
No, he is. By the end, he is. Because there's all the callbacks. And it's like,
you
okay.
see, and if you're basic like me and you don't know, you don't care. You just go, that was nice.
Yeah.
Can I say that the last time Hugh Grant was nominated for a Golden Globe was 2021 for The Undoing, a television series.
Oh, that was dreadful. Anyway, okay.
Sarah, give us something else. We talked about Wonka. What's another film?
Look, I don't want to talk about it very much, but Ferrari was one of my most anticipated films of last year, and it came out over the American winter, our Southern Hemisphere summer. Ferrari's got a lot in it for me that I would have loved, not least of which directed by Michael Mann. Now, Michael Mann did Heat, as we know, 95, which is my favourite film of all time. And he's done a lot of other brilliant films like The Insider and Collateral, and he's also done some really average films. And I fear, unfortunately for me, Ferrari falls into the average.
Oh, no.
Well, we spoke about Napoleon being really terrific in certain aspects, but you and I, Jeremy, agreed that there wasn't this through thrust that quite worked in Napoleon. Now, I would watch Napoleon again and enjoy it for all those bits. You know, for some inexplicable reason, despite the fact that Adam Driver is wonderful, Penelope Cruz is sensational as his jilted wife. Shailene Woodley is totally miscast as his mistress. It looks beautiful. It does everything beautifully. And there are some shocking and amazing driving scenes, but it doesn't work a la Napoleon. It doesn't work in that thrust way. Like, for example, Collateral is a film about a car. A dude gets in it and embarks on a series of assassinations, and it's propelled and it's amazing. And for some reason, Ferrari just you should totally see it, because of course you should, but it looks beautiful, blah blah. Nah, didn't feel anything. Really, except for Penelope Cruz, who's incredible.
I think that kind of reminds me of a film like Killers of the Flower Moon, where even though it's long, there is that propulsive through line.
There is.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that, because it's one of my films, and
same.
I watched it. When did I watch it? Where did I watch it? I watched it here when I came back from.
You watched it on the TV.
I watched it on the television.
Wow.
I would have loved to have seen it in the cinema, but I missed it, and 3.5 hours. I needed to watch it by sitting on a couch, not sitting in my room. And I didn't want to watch it with someone else who was going to get up and down. I needed to kind of get lost in the film.
I agree with you.
It literally got dark outside as I watched it, because I started at sort of 7:30 or 8 and finished at 11:30 because it's so long. But I was thoroughly engaged in that film.
Yeah.
I do think I have a criticism with this film, or maybe a wondering, and it's a similar wondering I'll get to with another film on my list, but they did everything that they could, Martin Scorsese and the team, to work with the First Nations peoples that are represented in that film. And I think they have been, like Lily Gladstone, as a kind of a spokesperson for her people, has sort of really applauded their work. But there is that piece in me that's like, it's just what story is being told and whose perspective it is. And so I don't fall either way on that. I just am open to that criticism from especially film critics who are First Nations in the States.
May I just ask, and maybe this is not the time for it, but Scorsese, I agree with you, does masterful work at making a long, involved story endlessly gripping. And that's Scorsese being Scorsese. And as you know, he is my favourite director, and I call him Uncle Marty, and so on and so forth.
You guys share the same birthday.
Exactly. So the thing is, right, what if somebody with fewer chops or lesser chops in filmmaking, who was, quote unquote, the right person to tell the story, did so and it didn't land, it didn't work quite so well? Which would we prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I know the answer. The answer to that's obvious, right? Because Scorsese's films is just so fantastic. But I just put that there because I think it's
still a pondering.
It's just a piece. It's just a piece to wonder. And I wonder if we're very clear now about stories that shouldn't be told by certain people, or there are stories that really should be from a perspective to keep it safe for that community and for the representation. So it's just interesting. But I loved it, and I thought that it unfolds like a horror film. It's just this. It just is this slow, sustaining horror, and you kind of. I feel for the Leo and the character in the film. But he's such a scoundrel, and even
but he's
Robert De
quite
Niro.
manipulated as well, isn't he? He's
It's,
at the mercy of.
And how brilliant! Like that, to my greatest hits. We mentioned in our last episode, something a film feeling like a greatest hits. This is like Scorsese's greatest hits. He's got his two best actors that he's had with this wonderful. Lily Gladstone's been a working actor for a while, but she's kind of been thrust into the spotlight alongside the likes of Leo and Bob.
The nice thing is, Bobby De Niro is amazing in it. It's not one of his dreadful later year kind of I'm faxing it in performances. He's terrific, and Leo's terrific.
He's so scary and so charming.
Yes,
I haven't seen a Robert De Niro performance like this, like you say, in a long time.
Yeah.
I think even compared to a lot of his recent Scorsese things,
like Irishman.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he was way better than this in The Irishman.
Yeah. I agree.
And if I compare it to the last film of his I saw, Scorsese's film, which is at least the last one I can remember, is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And how that is driven by this sort of fever dream of Quaaludes.
Yes.
And the film has that frenetic energy about it.
Yeah.
This is not that film.
No.
And we talked last month about movies that know what they are, and this film so confidently knows what it is.
This
it just
one
blew me away.
This reminds me of There Will Be Blood, the Paul Thomas Anderson film.
Oh, nice.
It's partly in theme and look and blah blah, but also because it's a quiet film.
Yeah.
And yet it is ominous the whole way through because Daniel Day-Lewis, they both are quiet and ominous because Daniel Day-Lewis is absolutely frightening. And yet he scarcely raises his voice and doesn't need to in that Daniel Day-Lewis way. But do you know what I mean? Like, if I put on There Will Be Blood and I think, oh, I'll just watch a little, forget about it, because then I'm in it for the duration. So I'm going to be interested to see how I feel about a second viewing of the Netflix one. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, William, give us another movie.
Sure. I have a category, and this is where all my other movies fall into. It's called Movies with Grandma. Basically,
how adorable.
Yeah, I went back to Taiwan to see my grandma. She is 91. She loves movies. Like, she tells me stories of when she was a girl. She would take her grandma to the movies, and her grandma didn't understand English. And so my grandma would see the movies on the screen. This is when you had, some sort of accompanist as well.
Yeah.
And she would explain the plot of the movie to my great grandma.
Wow.
And so she's loved movies her entire life, so she knows her movies.
Yes. And your grandma speaks English?
No, she does not. No.
Okay.
We're watching with subtitles.
Got you, yep.
And so this is the rest of my list. Movies grandma approves of and movies grandma hates.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. So, we start off with Aquaman 2.
She liked it?
She loved Aquaman 2.
Nobody else, I think, in the world or the box office did they?
So, for my grandma, it was just, she understood what was going on. There were goodies, there were baddies. The stakes were very, very clear. It's like, this is basically Lord of the Rings. There's a Sauron-like figure that Aquaman and his estranged brother Patrick Wilson, I think that's his character name.
Patrick Wilson.
Team up and then defeat this guy. And along the way, maybe they'll learn a little something about brotherhood.
Oh, wow.
Spoiler alert, they do. Wow. And so, it was...
Is it a spin-off from that family movie, Fast and Furious?
I was going to say Little Children.
Brothers. No, okay.
And so, yes, Aquaman 2 gets my grandma's stamp of approval.
That's gorgeous.
The second movie is, we talked about it, Wonka. She was confused by Wonka. She didn't quite know what's going on.
So is that a thumbs down for Wonka?
I'd say a thumbs
Okay, yeah.
She kind of she went to the toilet afterwards and then didn't come back.
Yeah.
So that's Wonka. The next one is just a mitigated disaster. That is Zack Snyder's new magnum opus, Rebel Moon, Part 1,
No.
A Child of Fire.
No, every part of that name, including Part 1 and Child of Fire.
Sarah, this is a Part 1 that's almost 3 hours long.
No, and it's all in slow motion. So if you just put it back to one speed, it would be about
It would be literally, I kid you not, about 2 hours 15.
Wow.
Man, this movie sucks. My grandma watched about 20 minutes of it and then was just on her phone.
Wow.
And I
Wait,
Snyder...
she was on her phone in the cinema.
Oh, no, because it's a Netflix film.
Oh, that's fine. I was just going to have a go at Grandma about having being on your phone
Oh,
in
gosh,
the cinema.
I would totally be
would.
the person to
You
say,
would.
Grandma, please don't do
That's
this.
right. That's right. Good.
But for Rebel Moon,
Yes, yeah.
But basically, Zack Snyder, if there's one thing he's good at, it's making very, very pretty composition.
Yeah.
He's very, very good at that. I saw a quip online, it's like, he should have been a photographer.
Yeah, spare us all the... Yeah. But so is it pretty?
No. It's very, very ugly. Everything I said about Wonka and its color palette, multiplied tenfold for Rebel Moon. It's just browns and golds. Everything is muddy. The slow-mo doesn't work. There's scenes of slow-mo within slow-mo.
Yeah.
You're get on with this.
Wow.
The apocryphal story is, of course, he went to Lucasfilm with this idea for Star Wars 7 Samurai kind of story. Lucasfilm said no, thank goodness. So he made his own Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible version of Star Wars. And I know you will hate this, Jeremy, because the movie ends when it gets interesting.
But at least it tells you it's part 1.
Oh, that's true.
Because
That's true.
what
It's
you
not
don't
like Spider-Verse
that's
without
right.
the Part 1 moniker.
That's right.
And so they put together a team. Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
no.
okay.
And so, yeah, Grandma, 20 minutes and she was out. The movie that my grandma loved the most, and this is very, very surprising, was a little film that is now getting a lot of Oscar buzz, and that's Alexander Payne's The Holdovers.
Yeah. Have you seen it yet?
No, I want to.
But you've seen it.
Yeah, we watched this as a family, and we all just loved
Good on
this
Grandma.
movie.
It is amazing, Jeremy. There's no question.
I can't wait.
Such a heartfelt, bittersweet, a little bit acerbic, a little bit funny. It's everything you want out of an Alexander Payne movie. Three
sterling performances.
My gosh, Devendra Randolph, Paul Giamatti, and Dominic Sessa, this new kid on the block who's so good.
Who was just a kid in a high school who just auditioned.
He was in high school plays, and now he's in.
And he thought it'd be quite nice to be an extra in the back of the scenes, but they went, "Oh, he's got the right hair, and he's so right in it. You'll love it because it's a school teacher."
It's a movie set in winter in 1970, and gosh, it's just a lovely time.
It's fabulous, and Paul Giamatti won't win Best Actor for it, but it's an honour to be nominated.
Yeah.
And it's the first time that he's reconnected in working with Alexander Payne since Sideways, which did get him the. Did he win the Oscar? Or?
Did he?
At least he was. So. No, he was at least nommed.
I watched one of the Hollywood Reporter round. I've watched a few of the Hollywood Reporter round tables, and I watched the actors one. It's so good. If you want to have all of them so far. I watched the actresses, the actors, and the writers. I've watched the producers, the directors. I think I sent you one that's quite lovely. It's the directors one or the producers one. But Paul Giamatti's in the actors one, and he's so great.
Yeah.
He's done so many films, and he talks like one of those old school Hollywood actors that just has all these little stories.
Yeah.
When I worked with Kubrick and
Olivier.
Yeah. And like I've worked with all these. I don't know if he's worked with Kubrick, but he was dropping names like that, and he wasn't dropping them to name drop. He just was sort of telling these great stories, and it's just some of those character actors, and just wonderful. And you forget how many movies that they've done. It's like, oh, that's that guy that showed up and blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
So that's it.
Nice, thanks, Grandma. We should get her on there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Sarah, maybe you can rattle off your last couple of films as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, can I pivot slightly differently? Speaking of character actors, Jeffrey Wright. We've seen him in everything. I think one of his breakouts was Basquiat back in the day. But Jeffrey Wright is a fabulous... I've seen him in flipping...
James Bond movies.
Yeah, I was going to say Sicario, not that one. The one with... Oh, I'm such my mother. The one with George Clooney in the Middle East.
Syriana.
There we go, Syriana, and a bunch of other things. He's done everything.
Yeah, he's great.
He's in the Hunger Games movies, right?
He's in Westworld.
He really has done everything. So, Jeffrey Wright. So this gentleman and listeners is a top tip. If you're obviously in another country than New Zealand, you might be in a position to see this film already, but otherwise we'll have to wait a few months. The film is called American Fiction. Now, I'm not going to spoiler it at all, but the conceit is absolutely gorgeous. Jeffrey Wright is an African-American professor, or at least a lecturer in a pretty average sort of college. And he has a publisher, and he's published books before. But it all transpires that actually, if he really wants to write and publish a successful book, he needs to come up with something that is blacker, in inverted commas, than the sort of work that he currently does. And he doesn't subscribe to this whole kind of writing the great American black novel. And so there is a cynicism in the whole film. It is terribly clever. It addresses all these issues of the fact, for example, that the author du jour is an African-American woman who speaks rather like I do in interviews, but the text of her novels is all, yo, gee, on the street, blah, blah. And so it plays up the cliches of, the tropes of African-American fiction. And Jeffrey Wright, in his wonderfully sardonic, I'm not going to play this game kind of way, goes on this incredible story that I won't spoiler. And it's the backdrop of it is the family drama, because at the same time he's dealing with ailing parents and reconnecting with siblings and that sort of thing. And it is an exquisite, beautiful, clever film. And the white people are sent up tremendously because, we're the publishers who are like, oh, I say, well, they don't speak with a British accent, obviously, but they're like, can we get that? That sounds amazing. That's what we want to read.
Is it up for Best Picture? It's definitely up for a lot of Academy
Awards. I think it
Awards.
is, right? I think it is.
I'm not entirely sure.
I'm pretty sure. I'll have a look.
It would be clever if it was.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be just a wonderful film. And, Jeffrey Wright is fabulous in it. I don't know if he's nominated for things, but...
I think he... let's have a look. Nominated for 5 Oscars.
Oh, it is already. Great. And it'll be best screenplay and whatnot.
Right.
It must be either adapted or original screenplay. But and maybe it would win that. But
it's interesting. I looked at the writing things this year. Barbie is under Best Adapted. Which I thought was...
But Maestro is Best Original.
Exactly.
yeah.
I was like, what?
Barbie is a
feels
brand.
very-
Maestro is a real person.
Yeah, no, Barbie shouldn't be adapted if it... I mean, it's less adapted than
very
Maestro
strange.
I
because
know.
there's no plot to Barbie's
Yeah.
life.
Okay, so it's been nominated for Best Music for the score. This is
American Fiction.
American Fiction. Best Motion Picture of the Year.
Nice.
Best Leading Performance by Jeffrey Wright. Best Supporting Performance by Sterling K. Brown. And Best Adapted Screenplay.
Sterling K. Brown is fabulous in it, and I
He
think
is
for him
fabulous.
it'll be a nice to be nominated one because he's up against other people. But yeah, anyway, American Fiction.
Excellent.
Oh my god,
Nice.
so highly recommendable, fantastic.
Well, I can see a film on your list there.
Yeah.
Is that your last one? Because that's
It was
also...
the only other one that I was going to mention because actually we saw 9 films in the cinema and we went to some oldies like White Christmas and American in Paris and did the old, MGM musical kind of thing. I saw heaps of films, but the other one that I've got here, which I saw over the holiday period, and I know that you've seen, Jeremy, and that we're going to have to work really hard not to spoiler, is All of Us Strangers. Incredible.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's not a spoiler is that the main character is gay or he's queer, and
That's right.
And there's a romantic
A
relationship
burgeoning relationship.
between his character. Oh my gosh, it's Andrew Scott.
Andrew Scott. Now
And
he
Paul
plays.
Mescal.
Yeah, so Andrew Scott, who people who have watched
Fleabag.
and I haven't, but he plays the hot priest in
Yeah.
Fleabag, and
Or
he's
Sherlock. He plays Moriarty.
oh,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
and he's Irish, and Paul Mescal
He's Irish as
is
well.
Irish as well.
Yeah.
And he's from After Sun and Normal People and that sort of thing.
And the director is it Peter Haig?
No, it's Andrew Haig.
Andrew Haig. He did Weekend and Looking. And,
Yeah. Did you see Weekend back in about 2014? Beautiful gay romance.
And if we were to do All of Us Strangers, that would be the film.
The
that we
obvious
could,
thing to connect it to.
because it's similar sort of vibes. I found it incredibly engaging and quite what's the word? It was like a spiritual experience.
Yes.
The layers of what that story is doing, especially for me and kind of where I'm at with life. And I watched it in Sydney, which feels very much like London in
Yes.
that movie, especially with the amount of trains I was going on.
Yep.
And there's a lot of trains in that film. And yeah, it's a pretty impressive piece of work. I'm surprised it didn't get more Oscar nominations than
Oh,
it did.
they are. The Brits are as well. If you read The Guardian like I do, they think it's a huge snub, and quite rightly, because Andrew Scott was up for a Golden Globe and...
The BAFTA, right?
well, yeah, they'll probably take all the BAFTAs because the BAFTAs are very cute at going, don't you worry about it, darling. Just because those Americans didn't like, we'll give you all the awards.
Just thinking about our last month's episode, we talked about Amadeus, which is based on a play. This film
It
feels because there's only four characters.
That's right.
There's the 2 characters. Again, we won't say how they fit into the story, but it's
incredibly poignant and moving.
Claire Foy and
Jamie Bell.
If all 4 of these leads are just absolutely astoundingly good in this movie, and
Yeah.
yeah, it is hard to talk about it without.
Yeah.
Just if you want to go see something that's achingly acted and very aware of its tone, take your tissues and go and see All of Us Strangers.
And then we'll talk about it later because honestly...
The audience around me was all sniffling and
Wow.
yeah, we were.
Oh, it's stunning, and it looks at issues of love and loss in a way that I have never seen done before, not in this particular way and not this effectively. It's just absolutely magnificent.
And there's a moment, and again, I can't really talk about this, but it happens a couple of times in the film where intentional perspective of what the writer and director, if it's the same person, I don't know.
Yes.
But there are some intentional perspective things in this movie that just broke my heart. And again, I can't really talk about that until people have seen it. But it's, All of Us Strangers.
It's based on a Japanese novel from the, I think, 80s, but it's very loosely based. That takes a sort of element of the plot, and then Andrew Haigh has changed it considerably to this particular story, which I haven't read the original, but I think this is undeniably more clever and more moving. So All of Us Strangers, there we go.
Can I finish us off with one more film?
Yeah, do it.
So I alluded before about a movie that I have an uncomfortable question at the heart of it. And I've already briefly had a conversation with you, Sarah, on the old Facebook Messenger. But that is it Yorgos Lanthimos?
It is, Lanthimos.
Yorgos Lanthimos film Poor Things, starring Emma Stone and
Mark
co-starring Mark Ruffalo
and Willem Dafoe.
And who's the other
the young lad? I never know his name.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The acting is brilliant in this movie. It is for the movie that the movie's trying to make.
Yeah.
It is a perfect film. It is beautifully shot, acted, paced. The sets and costume are incredible. The title sequences, the photography, everything is the music. It's a work of art. Like, it really is incredible. And my big question mark is, it's a movie that deals very heavily with a woman's sexuality, with that confidence breaking taboos, and yet it's still made very much by men. And so I've been trying to talk to as many of my female film fans to be like, what is your experience watching this movie? I've spoken to one of my friends. She's an actor, and she's a brilliant actor, working actor. She was in Jane Campion movies and things like that, and she really loved it. But she did definitely have some other questions. So I think the point is, her and I were able to have a conversation about it with no clear kind of leanings. And you sent me a wonderful article, which is effectively a conversation between critics. Was it 8 critics?
Yes. So it was from The Guardian, and it was 8 different critics from different bents, if you will, saying, yes, this is a wonderful feminist fantasy, or no, this isn't a feminist fantasy, or no, this isn't okay. I know you haven't seen it, William, and I've not seen it, and I've chosen not to.
Okay.
And I don't wish to. But are you going to?
Oh, I'm a huge Yorgos Lanthimos fan. I've been looking forward to this movie for quite a while. From that conversation, it reminds me a little bit of a film like The Handmaiden.
Yes.
Right, which is also very much it deals with a lot of themes to do with sexuality and feminism, but the writers and directors behind that film are all male.
Or Blue is the Warmest Colour, which, it's like this great lesbian love story, and then you find out how abusive or oppressive the set was.
That's
and
right.
how kind of anti-woman or feminist that experience was. And so Emma Stone just gushes about Yorgos Lanthimos and his process. And I think that's one of the key pushbacks to any criticisms is that she was very much a part of the process, and that she is a really strong voice. And you feel that in the film.
Yes,
like,
and a contributor to how Bella is as a character, no doubt.
Yeah. And she is the movie. And she gives it all. And I mean, there's a slight irony in that, because she's very naked through most of the film, but also she just there is this freedom about it that is wonderful, and that is the joy of the movie. Yeah.
And look, I actually don't have a right to talk about the film because I haven't seen it. I've read a lot about it, and I'm about to posit a pondering. I think that one of the pushbacks that says they're pro this film is the fact that not just Emma Stone, but that the character embraces her sexuality in a way that we often don't see, and often don't in history think of women as being allowed to do. And I'm 100% pro women embracing their sexuality and doing what they damn well like, etc., etc. I think that where it gets problematic for me, I mean, dear old problematics become like woke and everything, hasn't it? It's become such a tarnished word. But where it gets problematic for me is, my understanding is that most of what happens in the film isn't even a blue in the warmest colour kind of, it's 2 women having a relationship and having that sort of agency and whatnot, but that it's a woman's autonomy and agency to do with men, and men watching, and men being part of it, and men sort of being the mechanism behind it and all that. And then that gets tricky because then you get into, well, if women want to, why shouldn't they? You know, which is also where the prostitution argument gets a little bit tricky. And then it's like, well, if there wasn't the demand from men, would it even exist as an opportunity? And what about all the exploitation and the abuses and la-li-la? So look, it's a delightfully complex area. It's not black and white. And it is, and if anything, perhaps it's marvellous that a film like this, probably not what Lanthimos was expecting, is causing ponderings and debate and critical thinking.
Well, I mean, that's the best thing that you want for your film.
Absolutely.
But then also, I wouldn't be surprised if stories come out years later and, you know, I don't want to call someone a creep who's not a creep, but you know what I mean? Like, Woody Allen's come to mind.
Yes, that's right.
It's like you find out these stories and you're like, oh, that brings another...
Well, I mean,
you know, or what's his face from House of Cards?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin
where
Spacey.
the storyline creepily
Look,
mirrors
I mean, it's anybody.
reality.
Look, it's Kubrick making Lolita. It's many things. And
Hitchcock.
so
This
exactly.
whole entire oeuvre.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's complicated. And I suppose if I'm going to be feminist at all, I have to be very careful of not treating Emma Stone like she doesn't have the agency and the autonomy and the smarts to make a choice and to do all that sort of thing. So, you know, but yeah, complicated. And I just thought, well, I don't even know that I mean, I'm not mad on like cray kind of films, yeah. But I watched Annette, for example, the one soundtracked by the Sparks, and I absolutely loved it. And I've loved other Lanthimos films, or Lanthimosian films, as I like to call them. So, you know, I just didn't really want to.
It really reminded me of Metropolis.
Okay.
And I think there's very clear allusions to that in the film.
Cool.
And it also really reminded me of the work of Terry Gilliam and Jean-Pierre Jeunet, especially Jean-Pierre Jeunet in terms of kind of fisheye lens. And, so there's a real confidence in regards to the technicality. And it's like I said, the film it's trying to make, the film that it's trying to be, it succeeds hands down.
Yeah. And yet Terry Gilliam's problematic because you read Sarah Polley's memoir about working on, I can't remember, the Munchausen, Baron Munchausen film when she was 10. And it was absolutely traumatizing and inappropriate and wrong and dangerous and all these things. So, you know, even you say Terry Gilliam, and I think I get what you mean aesthetically, but it's not, you know, it's not the droid I'm looking for. So, you know.
Well, that feels like it's full circle with the Rebel Moon reference.
Can I finish off something very, very light?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, you guys know I love you guys. And I love your recommendations. So on the plane, not in New Zealand, because Air New Zealanders, didn't
Only
get
gave
the
you
works.
TV.
Didn't get the works, so I was forced to watch Bluey. I love Bluey, by the way.
Let that be a warning to all of you Air New Zealand customers that don't get the works.
Yeah.
Oh, I also watched a lot of Wellington Paranormal, which is a good time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But on China Airlines, which thankfully does have movies, I saw a little movie called Scrapper.
Yay!
Yeah, so Charlotte Reagan's debut, and I know you loved it, Sarah. It was a good time. Yeah, short, sweet. I have a little bit of an issue with how sometimes it goes for these flights of fancy. It feels very like if you've seen Richard Ayoade movies, like Submarines, it's like that, but not as well done.
Yeah, it goes into a funny sort of aesthetic, Jeremy.
Yeah.
It kind of goes almost a little bit animated at points, doesn't it? It wasn't necessary.
I completely
overlooked
think
it.
Well, that stuff should have been excised.
That's right.
It really took you out of the story, and it's like, look how clever we are.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, if I was to make a movie, that's exactly what I would do. And I don't make movies, wouldn't be cool if... But apart from that stuff, the central performances, Harris Dickinson is so good.
Yeah.
I can't remember the
little girl.
She's so good. She is amazing. But yeah, just a real sweet little slice of life about a bunch of low lives, just trying their best to get through.
Potentially
I really liked
sad,
it.
but actually still poignant. So you should watch it, Jeremy. It's
I need to. I love the trailer. And it's worth saying to listeners, if you haven't listened to our end of 2023 kind of highlights episode, Sarah goes into detail about Scrapper and your love for that film.
Well, I think if I remember rightly, I do it all talking like this, don't I?
Yeah.
So
it's very entertaining. When I was editing that, I was having a great time.
That's right. So,
and I think I was laughing along with my own laughs in the actual recording, which is a good. You've got a good bit when it's a double laugh.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, great chatting. This mini-sode has actually turned into a full-length episode. So
wow.
All right.
there you go. Those of you listening, if you made it this far and you're wondering why we're calling it a mini-sode, when it... but hey, it's been a good chat. Check out for our next full-length episode in a month's time, which could be next month, right? February.
That's right.
Where are we now? We'll be February when this comes out.
Yeah.
So...
At the end of Feb.
Yeah.
Follow us on all the social media platforms. Let us know any other films that you'd like us to talk about, discuss, compare. And look, until then,
Nō mai.